Welcome to Wednesday's Granada Reports. Good evening. In the moment, the very latest news on that NGA dispute. Also in tonight's programme, the massive collection in Nantwich for the charity which just doesn't exist, why a Liverpool ice skating rink's finances are melting away, and the editors of Manchester's new arts magazine say they're determined to succeed where their predecessors failed.
But first, just a few moments ago, after 6 hours of talks in London, TUC General Secretary Len Murray won the vital vote in the General Council against the NGA's proposal to call a national newspaper strike in support of their dispute with the Stockport Messenger Group. The vote was 29 to 21 in support of Mr Murray. This overturns Monday night's decision taken by the Employment Policy Committee to back the NGA's action. Peter Allen, our political correspondent, has been at Congress House, and he spoke to Moss Evans, one of the defeated 21, as he left the meeting.
Mr. Evans, 29-21 in favour of Mr Murray. Can you tell us what your reaction is, please?
Oh, well, of course, I'm rather concerned that the decision should have been taken that way, but it doesn't in any shape or form mean that as far as my union is concerned, I can only speak personally, that we will give the NGA and the NUJ all the support they require when in fact they're attacked by this, what I consider to be this unjust situation.
But the TUC
do you feel you've been
I can't speak for the TUC.
But that's the result of today's meeting.
Yes, well, you can talk to Mr Murray and you can talk to the chairman of the TUC about that. It's not my responsibility. My responsibility now is to speak on behalf of my union.
You're disassociating yourself from the decision of the TUC.
I'm not disassociating myself with any decision which is taken democratically, in the same way that some people disassociated themselves with the democratic decision that was taking place on Monday evening. I'm not that sort of person.
You're angry with
We took a democratic decision last Monday at Epoch, which has not been accepted.
Which Mr Murray
But I'm in a different ballgame. A decision has been taken today, which, as a member of the General Council, I accept. But that doesn't in any way mean that as far as the Transport and General Workers Union is concerned, that we give the maximum support to the NGA and the NUJ.
Do you
in
feel
similar positions. That's
do you
all
feel
I'm going to
nonetheless?
say. Thank you very much.
The TUC's went down against the NUJ.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you all.
Mr Moss Evans, the decision to call a strike was taken at the weekend to demonstrate the NGA's outrage at the contempt fines totalling £675,000 imposed for unlawful picketing at Mr Eddie Shah's Messenger Group printworks in Warrington. Meanwhile, pressure was being brought to bear on the NGA by the Newspaper Publishers Association. By Monday evening, all Fleet Street papers, except the Mirror Group, had taken out injunctions against the strike, and papers in the provinces were threatening to follow suit. In face of the confusion at the TUC and the mounting threat of legal action, Joe Wade, the NGA leader, announced shortly before lunch on Tuesday that the action would be suspended pending the outcome of today's meeting. Meanwhile, Liverpool City Council decided to stage their own NGA debate. They invited an NGA speaker to a council meeting this afternoon, then voted to call for a 24-hour strike. Understandably, that caused a row in the chamber. Only 2 weeks ago, councillors came in for stern criticism when they told Group 4 Securities at Eddie Shah's works they disapproved of their involvement. Group 4 have since pulled out at Warrington.
I recognise that it's a great honour for the NGA and for the trade union movement to be allowed to address this meeting.
Liverpool City Council undoubtedly knew it was playing with fire when it asked the NGA's Ray Williams to speak at today's council meeting. Council meetings are heated at the best of times in Liverpool, but when the NGA's branch secretary got up to speak, the Tory and Liberal benches all but drowned him out.
You're the people who are putting forward law and order and democracy. I hope people can see exactly what it means in your eyes. I was trying to explain to them basically what our dispute is all about and why it's important for Liverpool, for trade unionists in Liverpool to support the NGA and the stand we're taking.
You have had some support from Derek Hatton of Liverpool City Council. Do you think that it's his place to make the moves he has made to support the NGA?
Oh yes, I would think so, because Derek is a trade unionist, first and foremost, he always has been.
What's it going to mean to the NGA if we don't get the support of the TUC?
The NGA is determined to win this dispute. We recognise the importance of it for the whole future well-being of our membership, and we're going to have to go ahead with that, with or without the TUC.
Liverpool's Labour leaders have already made clear their support for the NGA. A delegation of councillors attended a mass picket at the Stockport Messenger works. Today's appearance by Ray Williams preceded a resolution by the council's Labour leaders urging the TUC to give the NGA its unconditional support, to call for a 24-hour strike and to prepare for an all-out general strike. That resolution passed. Is it really a City Council's prerogative to get involved in matters like this?
The people of this city voted us into power with an overwhelming majority. They knew what they were voting for, and they were voting for a party that was going to defend and fight for the interests of working people. Just as we're now showing support for the NGA, we're confident that the industrial trade unions will show support for the City Council in their fight against this Tory government.
But aren't you acting illegally by doing that, potentially acting illegally? This is clearly what Len Murray's concerned about with the TUC.
We are not acting illegally. What we're saying, though, is we're calling upon the TUC to actually ignore certain basic Tory laws. Because let's be honest, if it wasn't for the breaking of Tory laws, first of all, there would have never been a trade union movement in this country. And secondly, we would have still had children down the mines. And we make no apologies for making that call.
Well, so far this evening, Mr. Eddie Shah has refused to comment on the TU's decision. And a little later in the programme, we'll be bringing you a report on the mass rally held in Warrington today in support of the NGA. Richard. We go back now to the Stockport Messenger dispute, and while the TUC were arguing down in London today, 5,000 people turned out in Warrington to show their support for the NGA. At a mass rally well away from the troubled printworks, the demonstrators listened to speeches from miners' leader Arthur Scargill and the Stockport Six, the NGA members whose dismissal sparked off this long-running dispute.
The weather couldn't have been worse, but enthusiasm wasn't dampened by the grey rain which fell all afternoon in Warrington. The march lined up within a couple of miles of Mr. Eddie Shah's Warrington printworks. There would be no mass picket there today, so 4,000 trade unionists marched instead to a rally in a local park. A regional action, but a national demonstration led by an NGA dog from London named Selhurst. Close behind came the 6 men whose sackings began it all. Despite what's happened over the last couple of weeks, it seems that the NGA at the moment is on the losing end of this battle. Is that the way you see it?
No, I don't see it that way.
How do you see it developing?
How do I see it developing?
What happens next?
Well, we'll continue the fight, as we have done. I mean, don't forget, we stood there, 6 of us, on our own for 17 weeks. It was only still Mr. Shah decided to use these industrial laws that it became such a political issue. We haven't made it a political issue, and I can assure you the 6 of us will not go away.
Today, TUC General Secretary Len Murray was about as popular with the marchers as Mr. Eddie Shah. As the demonstrators reached Bank Park, the TUC in London was still trying to decide just how far it was prepared to go in backing the NGA. But the speakers were in no doubt.
We hope that our determination has shown clearly the way to the General Council of the TUC today to come out in support of the National Graphical Association.
Could I ask you please to go back and get your national councils to stand foursquare behind us, to move the General Council. For God's sake, we've got a right-wing government. We cannot afford a right-wing General Council.
And then it was the turn of the most familiar face on a very wet rostrum.
In 1972, we had a miners' dispute. And I would remind this audience that there was an Industrial Relations Act in being. There were those who said that the action of the miners' union would bring them into conflict with the law. As speaker after speaker has said, if our forefathers had paid respect to the Tory and establishment laws, none of us would have been here today to demonstrate our opposition. My advice to the whole of this movement, but in particular to the TUC General Council is, for God's sake, stop talking and start fighting!
The message from this meeting was that the trade union movement had never progressed without protest. But did Arthur Scargill believe that unionists should break the law?
I stand behind the TUC General Council policy and Congress policy itself, bearing in mind I moved the successful resolution. That policy is clear. It calls upon all the trade union movement and individual trade unionists to break the law if that law means emasculating the trade union movement in Britain. And it's no good people in Britain saying that they support solidarity in Poland on the one hand when they can break the law, and then saying in Britain, well, we've no right to break the law in order to establish decent wages and conditions. As far as I'm concerned, the movement wouldn't be in existence if our forefathers had not been prepared to stand and fight against unjust class laws.
Outside the Stockport Messenger, it was still raining on a damp contingent of police who guarded the front entrance. Inside, of course, the presses still rolled.
Lindsay Charlton in Warrington today, and meanwhile Mr. Eddie Shah has finally commented. He's just told us that he's prepared to go back to ACAS and negotiate.